and welcome to Findlay Designs. I hope you're all staying safe and well wherever you are in the world and that you're not too adversely affected by this pandemic. It's awful times and it definitely unites us all around the world because we're all having to deal with and cope with the exact same thing. So we understand how everyone is feeling around the world. My aim with my YouTube channel is to bring as many different videos for you to keep your mind occupied, give you something to do, especially if you're at home in quarantine, lockdown or whatever, or just looking for something to view other than the coronavirus. So that's my aim at the moment. So what I've been doing is, as you know, I've been creating different bits and pieces. My last couple of videos were 2 IKEA lamps, and I've taken this a little bit further. I bought this lampshade, oh god, months and months ago with the intention of creating a resin piece for it. I just never got round to doing it until now. So this is what I've created. So it's a double layer resin with a candle bulb. I might add that this is an LED bulb that is only a 5-watt bulb, so it doesn't give off a lot of heat. I did tests on my last lamps with the bulbs running for several hours each evening, and the resin didn't get hot. It remained quite cool. So make sure that any bulbs that you use in these are LED bulbs because they remain relatively cool and are not going to damage your resin piece. So this, like I say, is a double layer piece, and I've put some glitter in the centre so you get some reflections and things happening there. So, just let me turn it on for you so you can see it all lit up. So this is it all lit up. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. I wasn't sure whether this was going to work or not, because sometimes when it's curing on the table you don't quite know whether it's going to have the right look, whether it's going to be too big, too small, and just not look right. But I'm really pleased with this. So without further ado, let's get into how I created this piece. So if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I like to bend resin and create resin sculptures. If it's your first time here, then please take the time to subscribe to my channel. So when creating the parts for the lamp, it's just the same principle as the resin bowl. So I've poured the resin onto some plastic sheets. Now I'm using cellophane. Now you need to double check that your resin doesn't stick to cellophane, because I've found quite a few people have issues with pouring resin onto cellophane. So you can use any other plastic that your resin doesn't stick to, but it's your responsibility to just double check that your resin won't stick to that plastic. So I would recommend doing some tests with your resin on various plastics. Now I'm not following any kind of set pattern for this, and I do want the shapes to be quite random, so I'm just letting them flow in however they flow. Now one of them you can see that I've used quite a bit of glitter in one and the other one not so much. That's because the one with the glitter is going to be the piece that sits inside, so that's going to be the piece that's closest to the bulb, so then you get the reflections of that, so it bounces the light into the room. Well, that's the theory anyway. And all I'm doing here now is I'm mixing some of the resin together using a touch of mineral turpentine to just break that up a little bit, but not overdoing it because you don't want to muddy the colours. I want the colours to still be quite strong in the piece. So once this has been curing for about half an hour, I'm now going to add some of the acrylic diamonds. Now instead of adding them just around the top edge like I would normally do with the resin bowls, I'm actually adding them in a random pattern. Well, it's not actually random, I'm following the lines of the resin, and the reason why I'm sticking them more in the centre is that when you add acrylic diamonds or glass or anything like that to your resin, it sinks. So light can pass through those areas, so when we add the light we should get some really nice interesting effects of the light passing through these diamonds. Note, I'm being careful not to add any diamonds to the centre of the piece because that's where I'm going to position the hole for the lamp to pass through. So I'm just sticking that round the edge and making sure I've got enough space in the middle for the hole. Now I do have a few little bubbles, so I'm just adding a touch of heat to get rid of those bubbles. Now this has been curing for about 4 hours now, and what I've done is I've taken the top off a fizzy drink bottle because the diameter of that fits in quite nicely to the width of the lamp. So I know that when I trim this out now that this should fit onto the lamp perfectly. Now when I was doing this, because this is still quite pliable, it's actually quite hard to cut, so you have to be very careful when trimming the centre out. But the bottle top worked well to show where I needed to trim this. Now the resin is not sticky at the moment, so it means that I can handle it with my fingers. However, if you put too much pressure you will cause indentation, so you need to be careful where you position your fingers when you're trimming this out. So all I was doing there is I was just tidied up the edges, pushing some of the excess resin to the side. Now for this one I decided to use a rolling pin just to apply more pressure to the top so that I could get it to cut through the resin a little bit easier. So it meant that when I came in with the knife it was a little bit easier for me to trim this centerpiece out. Again, I'm being mindful of the fact not to actually touch the resin. I've got my fingers at the side to stop the cellophane from sliding, because the resin is still quite pliable and it's still quite bendy, so it's quite hard to cut. So you just need to be extra careful at this point. And all I'm doing here is I'm just using my finger to just push the resin out to just make sure that it fits once again on the lamp. So now that's done, it's now time to position this and drape it over a bowl. Now you can drape this over anything, it's just depending on how wide you want the lampshade to be. If you're using cling wrap or whatever, then you might need to use a different size bowl. So you can just play that by ear. So you can get different looks using different plastics to mould your shape. Now as you can see, I've laid the top layer over the bottom, making sure that the holes line up so that when we come to put it on the lamp then we're going to have a good fit with that on top. And all I'm doing now is just adding a little bit of heat, because I just want this to bend down a little bit more, because the cellophane leaves it open a little bit. So by adding a bit of heat I can manipulate it a little bit more to get the shape that I'm after. Now it was at this stage I wasn't sure whether this was actually going to work or not, and I thought, well, if push comes to shove and it doesn't work, I'll fill the hole in and just turn it into a bowl. So not all would be lost. So if yours doesn't turn out quite according to plan, that's what you could do with yours. So now it's time to leave this curing overnight, and we'll see how this looks in the morning. So here we have it cured overnight. It's still a little bit soft, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece it together and show you this, but then I'll take it all apart and let it cure for another week. But for the purposes of getting the video out, I'll continue to show you how it looks. So as you can see, those pieces fit quite nicely together. This is a HEMMA lamp from IKEA. It cost about $6, I think, off the top of my head. I didn't buy a shade or anything with it at the time because I always had the intention of creating a resin lampshade with this. So this is the first time using this. Now I decided not to glue the two layers together because it's fastened with the screw on the top. I felt it didn't need to be glued together. I think you'll agree this turned out quite well. I was really pleased with how it turned out. It definitely exceeded my expectations. If you're new to resin and don't know where to start, then take a look at my book, The Essential Beginner's Guide to Resin Art Techniques. I'll leave a link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, or better still, subscribe to my channel. I have lots of other ideas for your resin projects. So until the next video, bye for now.